Hey everyone, it's the Oxley Bomb MotoGP podcast with me, Matt Oxley, old racer, old journalist, and Peter Bomb, old geezer, good all-round guy, data crew chief, world championship winner, all that kind of stuff.
Why do we keep doing this stuff, man? Actually,
because it's what the people come for, I think. Yeah. So today's episode, we are talking about the French Grand Prix at Le Mans, which we all thought was going to be held in a pissing rainstorm with thunder and lightning. That was what the forecast had. But it was all dry from start to finish. And it was a pretty good race, thanks to one man, really, wasn't it, Peter?
Yeah, but first about the wet weather. It made me think back to my racing days when I saw a pattern. Usually when you arrive on Wednesday morning on the track or you start working on the pad box, you meet other guys from other teams and you're all telling each other, it's going to rain, it's going to rain. Oh, really? Yeah, it's going to rain. But normally it never does. Except, when it's Le Mans, we tell each other, of course, it's going to rain at some point. But then Le Mans always surprised, and it did not this time. And I was thinking, why do we keep telling each other and ourselves that it's probably going to rain every GP again? That's probably because you really don't want it to happen, and then it sort of makes it so hard. It's going to be extra special this time. But in the end, it actually one time, speaking of Le Mans 2015 with Danny Kent, he was sort of sick of being followed, because that's what Moto3 usually does. You follow the fastest guy and try to make a lap time. So he and me decided we go out really late this qualifying, and you can see it coming probably. Before when he finally went down, it started to rain just out of the blue, literally blue. Nothing, wasn't visible at all. So we started sort of dead last, and he finished fourth or something, because that's Moto3 as well. Don't worry.
This is why you're doing podcasts now, isn't it, Peter? Because
that was my last race.
You send your rider out for qualifying when it starts raining. You're a fucking genius.
Yeah, my timing is...
By the way, Peter did win the World Championship that year with Danny Kent. Just a little reminder for our viewers, for our listeners. So Jorge Martin, wow. From the third row of the grid, the sprint yesterday was one of those, when he went from sort of 7th or 8th to first at the turn 3, the first proper corner, really. Wow. That was one of those kind of magic moments where you go like, what the fuck? He just went past Bagnaia, Marc Marquez, and and Marco Bezzecchi into turn 3, which is a, real danger spot, the turn 3, isn't it? So many people lose the front there, and to have that confidence on not hot tires was astonishing. And then today in the race, was very different. He just had to grind it out. But wow, like we've been saying all the time, he's the fucking man. He is the man.
Okay, first a little spoiler. Yesterday wasn't. It was exceptional. It's good fun to see somebody doing starts like that. And Jorge is one of the. There is riders that can start and there's riders that cannot. And if you're 14 and super fast, but you cannot start, that's going to be probably the rest of your life. You're not going to be a good starter, because it's really deep in your DNA. If you can't start, you can't start. You can work forever on it, and you'll probably improve a little bit. But some people just got it, like Marc and Jorge, and some people just never have it, and that's a fact. But he whole shotted the thing off the line beautifully. First of all, I think they have to think about where to put the pole position in Le Mans, because it's actually on the wrong side. Normally, pole position is on usually on the inside of the next corner, and they're a little bit weird with corners, because one is not even a corner in Le Mans. Second probably is a corner. 3 is for me almost like turn 1, and it goes to the left. But since you have 2 fast kings coming from the start on the right side, being on P3 is actually super pole. Is actually being the best place on earth, which Bezzecchi proved 2 times.
You're on the inside.
You're on the inside. That's it. And what Bezzecchi did yesterday was starting really, really well initially. So he was leading, but he went like you do when you lead in Le Mans. You go immediately to the inside and defend the inside line. He over-defended it a little bit. Jorge arrived, I think, what the guys are you doing that on the inside? I'll go around the outside. He wasn't super brave. He didn't even went a meter extra wide. He just saw the opportunity arise, like sometimes people starting from P13 suddenly find themselves in P5 because they see the shit happening in front of them and choose the correct position. So they look brilliant until they are on the front row themselves. That's where things are different. But so I could sort of explain it, but still you have to have this this instinct to do this good start and then to see what's going to happen into turn 3 there. And he did it magically. But today, he started from P7. He is just P7 after the first couple of turns. That's what also can happen.
Yeah. I mean, before we go any further, it always annoys me at Le Mans that the long right-hander of the first corner is 2 corners, which confuses a lot of people with their corner numbers. Oh. So that first right-hander is turns 1 and 2 for some reason. Yeah. And the first left-hander, which is turn 2, is actually turn 3. So, yeah, it's quite confusing. But, I mean, yeah, so Martin did it both ways this weekend. Yep. He hole shotted into turn 3 yesterday in the sprint, and just off he went and just made a gap, and that was it. And today he just ground it out and just chipped away. And wow, he was a long way back, and just what we've been saying all season. He looks like the stronger Aprilia rider for the World Championship, doesn't he?
Yep, 100%. That's the man that I'm Dutch, so I don't bet. But if you have to put my money on somebody, it's absolutely Jorge Martin. Already for some time, and now it becomes more and more clear. He's in the same groove, in the same situation where he was when he won the World Championship. And that means he likes the bike because he fully understands what it's going to do before it's doing it. And sounds simple, and you would expect everybody likes that, but him and probably Pecco as well are really fully depending on that feeling. They also Fabio Quartararo a little bit. So don't change the bike for too long, and they just get better and better and better with the same bike. But if you keep throwing new parts at it and change the settings every time, they need more time to extract the best from it. But when they extract the best from it, they extract everything from it. So yeah, Jorge is now in a position where he really understands the bike. After the Jerez test, he had 1 or 2 extra updates. And he never looked back. So he started with the bike from the Jerez test, and that's how he started immediately here. And he literally doesn't need to look back at all. Now he's completely gelled to one with the bike, and he's also not the guy that is panicking when 3-1 is not really going there, and then they put the rear wheel in the front end and so on and chasing their own tail. No, not him, and not his crew. So he is arriving somewhere on a really good level, and I don't see him making a lot of mistakes from now on because he knows this situation. He's been there.
Yeah. And I mean, do you think that this is the first race that Martin had the same bike as Bezzecchi? Yeah. Because Martin missed the first test because he still wasn't fit after the collarbone he broke way back in Mategi last year. Wasn't fully fit. He missed the first test. So because he was behind on testing, he said to Aprilia, or they decided, we don't want these latest bits that Marco's got on his bike. We'll do the first 3 races or 4 races without them, then we'll test them at Jerez. So, and he said at the Jerez test, this is 2 real tenths.
Yeah, exactly.
What those new parts had him. And, he proved that today from, coming behind. And, Jorge's a real kind of cage fighter to me, you know what I mean? He looks like a cage fighter. He's just really, some riders are super muscly and some riders aren't. And he loads of tattoos, loads of ink, big muscles, and he is a fighter, isn't he? He loves to.
The way he celebrates already scares you.
Yeah. The way when he comes across the line, that's now his, he did it obviously by accident when he first did it, smashed the screen like celebrating, and now he does that every time. So I wonder if they take that out of his win bonus. So, he's a real cage fighter. And to me also, Le Mans is a real cage fighter kind of track. It's not all, you look at Jerez, it's all quite a majestic track, long sweeping corners, and it goes this way. And even if you think, most Grand Prix are quite majestic, Le Mans is just a shitty little track. It really is. But, it's all kind of chicanes and bits that have been changed for this reason and that reason over the years. And it ends up, it's just a bit of a mess. But it nearly always creates great, interesting racing
and
because
it is
it's quite a weird, the layout, the grip, the way the grip is, the way the layout is, and the way it's quite a difficult track to overtake. There's one proper straight on it, really. I guess the back straight is a bit of a straight, but it's a real kind of cage fighting track where you've just got to fight it. You can't be sort of super smooth and glorious. You've just got to go at it. And I think it really worked for Martin. He says he really loves the track, and it's not a lovable track, I would say.
No, fully fully agree with you there, Mark. Matt, what I see also is that why everybody is in such a short lap time to each other. I mean, it's silly. 0.3 for the top 10. That's Sachsenring level, which is a really short track. So that, for me, that comes from the fact that you got to be, when a track is relatively simple, you do 2 laps and you know it. It makes it harder to make the difference to everybody else. When tracks are simple, everybody can do more or less the same lap time. You need to push to dig quite deep to make 1-2 tenths of a difference. You don't make half a second on somebody. You can make half a second in Barcelona. You can make 3/4 of a second in Mugello because you found the correct flow and rhythm. Not in Le Mans. Le Mans, you need to be super, super precise during all this upright braking. Start your braking point from a super high speed and all the time modulating your brake to end up with the exact speed on the exact place where you want to put your knee on the ground and hit that apex. And then again and again and again. That makes it so tricky. That also makes it so easy to crash. And they're always crashing in slow speed corners over there. The couple of fast ones, they don't crash. And the best example, Matt, is Fabio Quartararo. He does all the laps, even if it's a sprint or the main race, or if it's really qualifying. Really qualifying is a super spectacle because the last double right-hander for start-finish, he goes so much over the curbs that the whole thing bounces. You want to see Flex in a MotoGP bike, go to turn 13 and 14 and look at Fabio. Or Marc when he's really on it, but he wasn't really on it. He was not on in the paddock at all this weekend, which is another thing we speak about. But seeing how Fabio Quartararo can be so precise with that bike, and then squeezing everything from a bike that's still not competitive, he made a difference here by being super precise. When he enters technically turn 1, which is just a kink leading to the real corner number 2, he's already on the curbs on the left. Nobody starts that corner with 200 and whatever, 20 or 30 on the curb. He goes on the curb. He goes 5th, 6th on the curb, puts his knee on the ground. I mean, some commitment. He's really sure where he goes with that bike, up to centimeter.
Yeah. That requires a massive amount of balls. That first, the first double right it doesn't look much, but quite often you'll see riders get a bit of a head shake going in there. And do you want to know how scary that is? You're doing like 250 Ks and the thing's trying to go into a tank slapper and you're trying to put it on your right knee. I mean, it's hard. We need to make sure that people understand how massive that first corner is, Yeah,
the thing is, we are, sorry, I need to explain again what I think is happening. Why bikes are suddenly, I mean, almost all bikes, especially when you're following another bike, get super unstable there. The weird situation from that kink is a little bit like Laguna, but Laguna, they also put for extra enjoyment like a bump in it. So you get 2 wheels off the ground. But when you're leaning with the bike, you put a lot of force on the whole thing. So the suspension goes in and everything is nice. And when you're upright, it's just upright. But the first kink is in between. So you're not banking enough to put force on your chassis and your suspension to make the thing stable like a corner.
Everything's a bit
it's
loose,
like a shitty straight line you're doing, so it creates instability by itself a lot, and especially when you're in somebody's way, because if you want to outbrake somebody into turn 3, you got to be on his ass through the kinks and then make sure you go to his left, dive underneath him. It's a ballsy thing to do.
Before we get deep into Quartararo, I mean the interesting thing about Martin and Bezzecchi, it looks like we've got an in-house battle for the championship. Unless something dramatic happens, I think they're going to be, I think Martin's the better rider, but I don't think it's going to go all one way. It might, maybe he's building that momentum and he's just going to be caning Bezzecchi. But if the in-house battle between the 2 Aprilia teammates goes on all year, this will be the first time. Do you know when we last had a in-house team battle that went all the way?
No, but you're going to tell us now.
I'm going to tell you. 2015, Jorge Lorenzo and Valentino Rossi, right? They don't happen very often.
That was nasty in the box.
Well, that's what I mean. That was the nastiest. I mean, it's never,
remember what they...
it could get quite interesting because remember the guy getting in the middle of them two then was Marc Marquez. and if Marc comes back, and we'll get into Marc later, if he comes back fit and everything, he starts winning races and stuff, he's going to be in the middle of them, isn't he? So it could get really interesting. I think we could have a good... And having an in-garage battle is always kind of interesting, more interesting.
Yeah.
Well, they both have their, having guys on different bikes is interesting, but it's interesting because you can spot the psychology of they're all trying to, sneak off each other's data, trying to learn stuff. They're trying to get the weight of the factory behind their side of the garage.
Get under the other guy's skin in whatever ways.
Exactly.
Can be in the hospitality, can be with his girlfriend. You just annoy him left and right.
Yeah. So it could get interesting. And Bezzecchi, they're both fighters, but Bezzecchi's a bit of a hippie. To me, he's Valentino Rossi. He's very much like his mentor. He's a bit of a hippie. Whereas Martin is just like a fucking cage fighter.
100%,
and I see, it'll be interesting. Obviously, Bezzecchi isn't a hippie when he gets on the motorbike, but it'll be interesting to see how psychologically that battle goes in the garage, and interesting to see how Massimo Rivola, the team boss, and while we're talking about Aprilia, obviously their first 1, 2, 3 with Iagura on the podium, we should just talk a little bit about how Massimo Rivola has turned it around, right? So if we need to go, you think Aprilia finished last in the championship, in the Constructors' Championship 5 years in a row, I think 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, I think. And the boss of Piaggio, the Piaggio Group, which is the largest producer of powered two-wheelers in Europe, the boss whose name is he's dead now, Roberto Colonnino. He was the boss of Piaggio, and he had a straightforward decision in 2019. Either we go home or we go hard. So either we quit, we get out of MotoGP completely because we finished last the last 5 years. What's the point? Or we start spending more money and make it happen. And one of the first things Colonnino did was ring up Massimo Rivola, who worked for Ferrari Formula One for their driver academy. He was bringing up Charles Leclerc. Massimo Rivola's job before he came to Aprilia was working with with Charles Leclerc, who's now a Ferrari F1 driver, if you know anything about F1. So he came from Ferrari F1, and that's really important because, F1 in organization and detail, blah, 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 is in another league compared to MotoGP. The way they think about things, I think it's, in another league. We obviously much prefer MotoGP, but Rivola brought that kind of F1 mindset with him and straight away started bringing people from F1, like Marco De Luca, who's now chief of Aprilia Vehicle Dynamics. He was a Ferrari F1 aerodynamicist. So he brought, Massimo Rivola brought quite a lot of people from F1 with him, signed them, and then kind of welded the kind of MotoGP talent with the F1 talent. And
that's the hardest thing because guys are dangerous.
Yeah. They can be. They need to. Yeah, I remember speaking to Romano Alberziano, who was at Aprilia then, about all the F1 guys coming into MotoGP to do aerodynamics, and they were just like so excited. You'd think that because they were had this whole new problem, and he said it was like discovering a new world. He said they felt like Columbus discovering America. You know what I mean? Because they just. I mean, to me, just a motorbike's got to be 10 times more exciting to work with than an F1 car. It does so many more things.
In a way.
It's so weird. It moves in so many different more planes. The rider is part of the aerodynamics, and all the riders are different. Not only are they different shapes, they move forward and back in different ways. They move left and right in different ways. So it must be super fascinating if you're a aerodynamic scientist trying to work that out. It must be. So yeah, that's basically what I was saying, that why have Aprilia got where they are? Largely, it is Piaggio deciding to spend more money, bringing Rivola in, who just completely reorganized the stuff, and then obviously most recently you got Fabiano Stellacchini, who fell out with KTM in 2024 and joined Aprilia last year. So they've just been building and building and building, and it's no surprise really that they are where they are now. They were already there. You think back to Misano last year, where Bezzecchi had a massive fight with Marc Marquez in the race, and Marquez was in a special mood that day and beat him. But they've been there since. They've been at the top since then. And they keep. And obviously now Ducati, well, certainly last season, weren't allowed to do any wildcards where Aprilia were. Aprilia still are, but so Ducati have had their hands tied by the concessions rules, and Aprilia have now caught them up. And Aprilia assuming they carry on where they are, will lose their concessions. They will go up one rank after the summer break this year, I think. So, I mean, it's fascinating how Aprilia have turned it around.
After the summer break, all the development is already stopped for this year's bike. So they only work on next year's bike anyway.
Yeah.
They timed it pretty well.
Well, Aprilia will be very lucky if they are dominating the championship, because then literally they can just go like,
everybody starts from zero.
Exactly.
850. So they timed it quite. But another thing, speaking of Rivola, very interesting. One of the first things he said on air on MotoGP.com when he was interviewed after the finish, he's very, very clever actually, is to remind us, saying, well, it's exactly 1 year ago that Jorge Martin's management came here in Le Mans telling us, this is not a company we believe really in. We go to Honda. Where can we sign to leave? And he said, no, you don't sign. You stay here. I think you're really good and we will be even better. And 1 year later, I mean, wow, this is something. I'm happy that he said it on air, because Jorge Martin has not the best group of people that advise him around him by far. But
to me, Martin loves the drama. He's always loved the drama, and and I love that he's quite a dramatic rider and a personality, because it gives you something to get your teeth into. But I think that whole switch to Honda was all the big drama, wasn't it? Like, But I mean, Rivola is definitely a politician. He comes from F1 where you need to duck and dive with your politics. And when Martin was trying to leave last year, Rivola was like, when it started getting nasty, he says, no, we will defend our position with our lawyers. Yeah. We will go to court. If you want to leave, we're not going to let you leave. We're going, and that's quite unusual, because generally people will go, okay, you want to leave. There's no point in trying to keep you. But he said the opposite. He said, no, we are going to court with you, and we will win. We will use our lawyers.
And that's what I think is a great part of his strength, that you walk past the team or you speak to anybody from the team, it's always a good atmosphere. Everybody likes each other there, which sounds easy, but it's really, really difficult at the end. That must be down to the leading people in the team. That always starts there. If your rider wants to leave and you force him to stay, otherwise you go to court. But at the same time, you still keep him happy and motivated. Yeah. I mean, that's Nobel Prize stuff, eh?
No, absolutely.
That's quite something to do. Yeah. And now they're all loving each other over the moon. But he was betraying them big time.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, a lot of team bosses would have just gone, right, well, I'm never going to fucking talk to you ever again.
Sign here, pay the money.
I'm going to take you to court, but or B, I want to be your best mate, And that's going on Rivola again. I interviewed him a month or two ago, and he was going on about, and it sounds obvious, about how he tried to encourage an open mind within the race department, because a lot of, you might be a junior or medium engineer and you've got some idea, but you don't want to tell the top engineer in case he goes, don't be a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? So he said, I want an atmosphere where everybody will put up their hand if they have an idea. And Rivola was hugely part of the switch, the most important technical switch, although he's not a technical guy, he's not an engineer at all. He was actually hugely pivotal in making Aprilia go from the narrow V4, the 72-degree V4, little narrow V like that, to the 90-degree, which was basically the key transformation in turning the Aprilia into a competitive motorcycle. Rivola was a prime driver in that switch. So he has actually been massively important in the whole Aprilia, ecosystem.
Yeah, funny you say that about this atmosphere. Not too long ago, spoke to a guy who's somewhere else now, but once was in Aprilia MotoGP, and that's exactly what he said. He said it's so fun. It's like a private team that has quite some budget, and everybody is super, super enthusiastic. So we try sometimes something from somebody's suggestion, and obviously it costs money. It doesn't work out, but nobody blames him literally. He doesn't feel like, I'm a big failure, and for the next 2 years I better propose nothing. No, then you put it on the table. We said, it's actually not a bad idea. It turned out to be a bad idea. No problem. Please bring another idea if you want. So everybody feels completely free, safe, protected. Yeah. And this is really that's a super good environment to extract the best out of people, both with his riders and with his team. So they're the dominating factor because they finish 1, 2, 3. don't count Ayagura out for the third place in the championship. Ayagura is basically very close to Marco Bezzecchi, except he can't qualify. But because of where he starts later on in the grip, partly helped by that, he's super fast in the end of the race. I don't call him a tire whisperer or whatever. He's just a shitty qualifier. But he's on an Aprilia, and he knows how to overtake people. So, which just is, see where he is in points and how many races we still have to go. He started qualifying already a little bit better, but it makes everybody. I mean, there's only a fourth rider on another Aprilia that again damages his reputation huge time now. Raul Fernandez here was just not. If it's in a weekend where all the Aprilias shine and you don't, and we see him making the type of moves that he did in the first 3, 4, 5 laps with Zarco and so on, that's completely bullshit. That these are like hobby amateur racing, very feels like very personal, and everybody loses. So exactly. Raul is in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, in the championship now, you've got Bezzecchi on 128 points, Martin only 1 point behind, and it's not only Ayagura who's got qualifying issues, Martin has as well. I mean, he was on the second row at the first 2 races, and he's been on the third row at the last 3 races, where Bezzecchi's been on the front row at 4 or 5 races. Agura generally on the fourth row the last couple of races. Well, he was 9th.
I hope I'm wrong, but I think Martin arrived in a moment now where he starts to qualify like he did in his best championship winning year with Ducati. That's usually the front row if it's not pole position, because he used to qualify super well. Yeah. And now he likes this bike. Okay, I don't want him to start to dominate the championship, but it might be that we start to see a very, very strong Martin and Aprilia for the rest of the year.
Yeah. And why do people struggle with new tires? Well, for all kinds of reasons. The motorcycle changes. When you give it more grip, the motorcycle changes, and it can change. It's not always a completely positive thing, having more grip. Having more grip is excellent, but if it changes the way the bike behaves and the bike becomes more aggressive, because generally the more grip you have, when you lose it, it loses it more violently. So the bike can be quite challenging to ride on a brand new tire or on a qualifying tire. And I think that's one of the reasons why these guys struggle. Ayagura, by the way, a little bit of History Channel. I'm pretty sure that Ayagura is the first Japanese rider to finish on a MotoGP podium on a non-Japanese bike in where are we? 78, 79.
That's
pretty good. That's a pretty good statistic, isn't it? If it's right, by all means, tell us if it isn't. But I kind of went through the history books, the old.
Wow, do you do that sometimes? Went to history books, Matt? Wow.
Yeah, no, here you go. The big thick thing that doesn't exist anymore. So I went through that today. I mean, I can't go through like 900 races in one day, but I'm pretty sure he's the first Japanese guy to finish on the podium on a non-Japanese bike, which tells you quite a lot. Okay, so I think we should talk.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we speak MotoGP. Sorry,
I'm only talking about the main class. We should now speak about Ducati because obviously, what a weekend for them. So they had. Okay, everybody's saying Ducati are finished. They're in a nightmare. Yes, but Digi Antonio, the bike isn't as good as the Aprilia. There's no doubt about that. But Digi Antonio finished 4th today, 2.8 seconds behind behind Martin. It was 27 laps. He was lacking 1/10 of a second a lap, right? And so it's not. It's not night and day. It's not like Ducati are in a disaster situation. They're in a disaster situation because Marc Marquez is injured. Pecco Bagnaia fell off again. So it does. I think it looks worse than it actually is. Yeah. Would you agree?
I fully agree. They do. Yeah, the bike. What I noticed mostly is there seemed to be finally a stable situation again in the Ducati Lenovo factory side in the Ducati team. And stable means they don't change too. They normally didn't tell us, but the fact that Pecco Bagnaia is where he is must mean, knowing Pecco a little bit, that they don't change a lot, because Pecco is one of these riders that get faster if you don't change the bike too much. It must be good, and then don't touch it, and that's how they screwed up his whole last year. But somehow their things must be more stable now. And the fact that Marc Marquez, when he really needed to do it and could override whatever his problem was, did a lap time in Q1 that we still don't believe really happened. That's unbelievable. The guy in pole, Pecco later, was still 0.3 slower in Le Mans, where normally everybody, the whole top 10 is in 0.3. So the bike is capable of more, just Marc is not at the moment. And Pecco is in a stable situation. That's my conclusion for Ducati. They're not far off. They just don't have a top rider.
Sorry. No, exactly. You think of last year on the GP25s, it was a fucking disaster. Without Marc, they would have been screwed. Alex Marquez obviously finished second on the GP24, but so already last year, Marc was carrying Ducati, or the factory bikes anyway. You know what I mean? He was the guy making the difference. So actually, not much has changed. I don't believe it has. And okay, Pecco said that they sort of learned a few things at the Jerez tests, and they're all sort of using slightly different aeros. But those aeros that you're talking tiny little differences.
These are the differences.
Marc's going for a less physical aero because he's just weak. He's weak.
Ducati is not in trouble. Marc? They just Marc is in trouble, and that's why Ducati sort of is in trouble. Not technically. No. Exactly.
I mean, I think the Aprilia is better, but it's not night and day. I mean, literally, I would say Martin is a better, more complete rider than Di Giannantonio. And yet Di Giannantonio's race pace was 0.1 second slower. So it's really not people that are going saying, Ducati are finished. No, they're not at all. They might not win the championship, but the differences are tiny. We should now speak about Marc. Let's talk about the good stuff first. I mean, that lap that he did in Q1 yesterday, because obviously he probably would have got into Q2, but
it wasn't
on
really
Friday,
fully clear at that moment.
No,
that's why he went out again.
His last lap would have got him in, but Pecco crashed and it was yellow flag, so his lap time got discounted. But his lap time, in Q1 was 0.34 seconds than Bagnaya's pole, and then the gap from Bagnaia to 10th to Alex Marquez in 10th with 0.29 seconds. So Marc was 0.34 seconds than Bagnaia, and the gap from Bagnaia to 10th was 0.29. I mean, insane.
Yeah, this was unbelievable. Mostly in Sector 1 already, which is the scary one we just talk about all the time, which is the scary one. He got it all sorted. He got it all under control.
Yeah, it was
no, he doesn't. Just like you, and I'm curious to hear your side. I was thinking, wow, why, how could you do that and not do it again? At that time, we didn't know about his physical problem. And I was like, okay, you have a problem, but somehow when the pressure rises really high, you can override it shortly. And then you're the old Marc again, but just for one lap. And basically, maybe in a way, I'm a little bit right, because he later explained about, when he had a big crash that he's riding around with a hugely damaged shoulder and was already planning on operation.
Yeah, so. I mean, at Jerez, he said to us, that Alex was dancing on the bike and that he hadn't danced on the bike since Mandalika, and maybe he'll never dance on the bike again.
Because you asked him, when did you dance again?
I'm good at leading questions. That's what I'm. Why
I was
I do
ashamed
what I do.
actually standing close to you, but that's.
I made it work. The really interesting thing in that lap, to me, that lap he did in qualifying was the first time we've seen him dance since. Yeah. It wasn't even Mandalika, maybe the weekend before, or weekend before that, before he won the title, when he was still racing hard for the title. The bike, in particular, if you want to go back and watch that lap, the way he enters Garage Vert, which is the double right at the very back of the circuit. So you go over the hill, go down La Chapelle, long right-hander, then you go down to Museum Corner, long left-hander, then down the hill, and it's quite steep downhill. And what Peter was saying earlier about how you have to get everything just right at Le Mans, because quite a few downhill entries, and if you get your corner entry slightly wrong, you're going to lose the front because it's downhill. He had the thing, the back was fishtailing around going in there, and the kind of front, you could see the handlebars going left to right as he flicked it in, and then just as he went properly into the corner, the front tucked again, and it didn't have any effect on him at all. He just nailed it apex, and I just thought, this is literally, that's the only 1 minute 29 seconds that I've seen him ride like that in the last 8-9 months. It was quite sad, really. What remember what we're missing. But what really struck me was at the end of that lap, and again, it comes back to what he said later about the screw loose. The way he pulled over to the right of the track, he finished the lap and pulled right over and nearly stopped. Yeah. Now, I know he was trying to get out of the way of other people, but the way he did that to me was important. And then when he said what he said later after the crash, horrible crash in the sprint, he said that the whole problem he's been having, and he only realized it after Jerez, went to the surgeon and said, look, something's wrong in the arm. And they went in and they found a screw from an old crash. I mean, he has had dozens of screws, and I mean literally dozens of screws in that right shoulder and humerus around there. There's one of the screws in there is touching on the radial nerve. Now, the radial nerve for a motorbike racer is probably the most important nerve in your body because it basically controls your whole forearm. You know, if your radial nerve is screwed, there's no way you'll race a motorbike again. And I think, you know, maybe he did that lap, and he said he did it on adrenaline. Yeah. You know, so obviously had a huge right, fuck it, I'm going to do it, boom, boom, and he did it. But he pulled over so quickly that I thought he's got to be in pain or something. Yeah. To pull over that quickly and go, obviously, you know, felt that the power, you know, when the nerve is touched, the power goes from the arm. It was just unusual, and I thought that's odd. Something that shows that he's in pain or agony or something. And yes, the thing is, what worries me, I think he will be all right. They'll take this screw out, which has been in there from another operation, and he'll probably be all right. But if that screw has damaged the radial nerve, right? Because it's been brushing up against it all year. If that screw has damaged the radial nerve, that could be a real super problem for him. So I hope and pray that they will take that screw out and the radial nerve will be fine.
If there is a screw, okay, how to say it? If a screw comes loose, you're suggesting we can take out the screw and everything's fine. So the screw was there without any reason anymore.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I hope that's true, because
sure.
I've got here a plastic bag. I'm sorry for the people. While we're at it, for some reason it's always on my desk. Wait a second. This is it.
These are from your leg from many years ago, right?
Yeah, these are from hips and legs. There's even one plate that I broke as a plate, the one at the bottom. But anyway, yeah. But I'm not saying this to be, I'm so brave, but I always wanted to get rid of all the screws. Yeah, as soon as there is a screw and I leave it in, then I know the next time it will probably be worse when I damage myself again. Something else will break, like a knee or whatever, you know. So I was fit, but hey, Mark is a lot smarter than me. He's half a doctor by now. He has a reason. There is a reason why the screw is in there. Or probably he didn't want to waste the time. I was waiting for the winter to have it taken out. But just like Maverick Vinales, these screws, they start having their own life. Everything moves. You have a couple of crashes left and right, and before you know it. Yeah. Actually, some of these screws that I have are technically brilliant. And it's not just because they're titanium, but every little detail on them, you can just laugh. Yeah. I love these screws because they're hollow. They have a very special thread on them, and so on and so on. Yeah, it's a nice kit. Nice kit.
Well, it's a whole nother science. And you saying about Mark knowing about his body. I mean, his physio, Carlos Garcia, told me he knows more about his body than some doctors. You know what I mean? You know, he knows the word of every muscle, the word, you know, all these kind of things.
Yeah, exactly.
You see, it's confusing. Where is this screw from? Which surgery? We don't know. What we do know is that when they operated him on him after the Mandalika crash, they found a bent screw and a loose screw from an old. It's
like you open the hood from an old car. Oh, there's still a tool left there, right?
Absolutely. I mean, they must see these things when they X-ray him, right? Yeah. But they must think, well, we're just going to leave it. If there's a screw that's just in a bit of muscle, just living its own life, it's not doing anything anymore, then you're not going to go in there and dig that out, are you? Because it's going to cause potentially more damage, or probably more damage by going in there and getting it out. So you just leave it. And obviously this one, who knows what, I don't think it's necessarily from the most recent surgery. It could be from another surgery. Yeah. I mean, for example, when he had
his shoulder,
the second surgery, his shoulder is a fucking mess. I know when they put in the second plate after he broke his humerus, that was a titanium plate with 12 screws. Do you think how many times he's had plates put in that arm? And every time is 10 to 12 screws. You know, I mean, I think of my, since we're now talking about our personal injuries as well, I smashed up my knee many, many years ago when I was racing. And I can't even remember how many operations I've had on my left knee since then. 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't know, something like that. And I know from that the joint becomes so tricky. It's been so fucked about with that you have to really look after it well. If I just stand on it badly, if I step on it badly, then I've got bone to bone in a lot of the knee, and that will kind of bruise the bone or whatever. I'm in agony for a week. You know, so the thing you become so, if you've got a joint that is very, very mashed about, like Marquez's right shoulder is, it becomes incredibly fragile. And you can just do the slightest thing to it, and it has a huge effect. You know, it takes weeks or months to get better. And I think that's where Marc is. But I really, really hope that when they they've already taken it out, in fact, haven't they?
Should be,
They were operating on him while they were racing today. So I do hope that it's okay, and if it's all come out all right, I wouldn't be 100% surprised if he turns up in Barcelona. He's already said he's not going to ride there.
I don't think so. He's careful. The championship's gone. He's an old man now, but every crash hurts him even more. It's not like in the past. He will be conservative and carefully, and everything is for next year. For next year. I think.
But that's what he says even now. You know, he says, "No, I'm going to be like he after that. I mean, fuck, that was a horrible high side. Corner entry high sides can be really, really nasty. They can be worse than corner exit high sides sometimes. And he said, you know, when he was being interviewed, when he revealed the problem about the screw after the sprint race, he said, that's why I've been riding sensibly this weekend. And it just kind of, I mean, but you know, he blamed the crash on probably, you know, the fact that if it's touching the nerve, not touching the nerve, that's why he's all right 1 minute and not the next. So I do hope that they have taken that out, and that nerve is now completely undamaged, because otherwise we're in trouble.
I blame Fabio Quartararo. It's his fault, because Fabio was in a good position and defending himself very well to Joan Mir. Joan Mir didn't want to crash again, so they were a bit yo-yoing up and down the distance between Fabio and Mir. But
in the sprint,
and then Marc was not in contact with Mir, but in the end, at some point, Fabio slowed down a little bit. Mir found again connection to Fabio, but couldn't pass him. Then the whole pace dropped a little bit. Then Marc arrived as well. Probably didn't have any serious plans, but he was the third in a short train. And then he made his mistake going into this right-hander. You go completely to the left, but you don't go over the white there. His rear wheel was on the white at the moment that there is a lot of engine brake with closed throttle, too much engine brake. So for the white and for the banking that he had at the moment. So he was just sort of sloppy. He was getting into a situation he didn't really want to. He wasn't there to win. And suddenly there's two bikes in front of him that have more or less his pace. I don't think he was preparing an overtake or anything.
No,
it's just then you don't really see exactly where you're going. But if your arm mat of your shoulder is not reacting exactly very accurately to where you want it to be, then at 3/4 of the race you get tired and you find yourself suddenly 5 centimeters more to the left, which can be lethal. Okay, Matt, but before we move on to our next topic, a quick message from today's episode partner, On Track Experiences.
Yep, On-Track Experiences give MotoGP fans access to the kind of premium race weekend experience you'd expect to cost a fortune, but at a price that's far more accessible than you might think.
Yep, they offer packages for MotoGP rounds right across Europe, as well as flyaway races abroad, with paddock access, team hospitality, guided pitbox visits, riders meet and greets, and more.
Yeah, so for your next MotoGP weekend, if you want the VIP feel without the VIP price tag, head to ontrackexperiences.com. That's ontrackexperiences.com. Yeah. And again, that's Le Mans. It's all these little Mickey Mouse corners, and you have to be so perfect on every line, and it's so easy not to be because you know you just got these Mickey Mouse none of that track, pretty much the way it is now, was designed. How it was designed to be. It's all been changed over the years. They've changed this chicane. They've done this. They've made this corner tighter. And the last double right used to be a single right. They've just forever changing. I mean, it hasn't been changed for a long time now, but they had a couple of deaths there. When I first raced there in the 24-hour, they had the first corner sequence, which is the two double rights and then the left right, was just a fifth gear right-hander over the top of the hill, which was awesome. And somebody was killed there in 82, 83. So they changed, they put in the chicane, and then the chicane on the back straight, the left right. Yeah. That used to be a fast left, and that's where Michel Fruchy, the Swiss MotoGP rider, was killed in 83, and that's why they put that in there. So it's been changed constantly.
Yeah, it has definitely a lot of character. I love it. I love it. Tracks like that, but we don't need 5 of them in the year.
No. But no. It's a shit track, but it makes great racing. Exactly. You always get weird stuff happens at Le Mans. Always get weird stuff.
The only thing we didn't get, which we all were expecting, is the rain. Disappointing.
Yeah. It was, especially for Johan Zarco. Little bit about Pedro Acosta and KTM.
Yeah, really. I mean, Acosta, the way he's riding the bike is so beautiful, such a joy. Fabio is a joy to watch because he's so precise. Pedro Acosta is a joy to watch because he's playing with the bike. He puts it left and right where he wants it, and he reminds me always of Kevin Schwantz, the way he holds his head and turns his neck while the thing sort of, I don't know, he reminds me of Kevin. When Kevin was playing and sliding that Suzuki, this is a little bit how Acosta is riding the bike, but he's very precise in his way, very accurate, and extracts the best from a bike that's clearly not competitive. He grew a lot as a rider, a lot. He will be ready for the big job coming at him next year.
Yeah, if and when he presumably will go to Ducati. And I quite a lot of respect for Acosta because, you can see how kind of upset he is, disappointed that he's not been able to get a good result. And he used to complain about the bike quite a bit, and now he doesn't. And I want riders to say what they feel, but it gets a bit, if a rider, and Quartararo is a bit like that, just like repetitive every fucking weekend, blah, 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 the bike's shit. It does get a bit, it's not so much a corporate thing as in, you don't want them to say nasty things about the bike all the time because it's bad for the brand. It's also the people working with them.
Yeah.
All their mechanics and crew chiefs and data guys and everyone in the team working their fucking asses off every weekend, go home and work, back at the factory, whatever. If you're moaning all the time about that bike not being right, then you're not only doing down the brand, you're doing down all those people who are basically, that's what their life is, trying to help you do as well as you can. So, big respect for Acosta, not blaming it on the bike.
But he changed. He did a full Yui in that respect, because last year he was only moaning, complaining, and then he left it in the gravel trap. Because he started okay, then he fight for a position. If 3 people overtake him, then he leaves it in the gravel trap. He didn't care. Yeah, he changed completely, which is good. Remarkable.
Yeah. I mean, he is maturing without a doubt. I mean, he's still only 22. He's changed a lot as a person. That's the thing. You really see these riders change. Because they're coming in. Most of them now coming in quite young, and in 2-3 years they become almost completely different people. Yamaha. I mean, so Quartararo finished 7.7 seconds. So I mean. Wow,
that is close.
He rode an amazing race. I mean, the next Yamaha was basically 25 seconds behind Quartararo. So pretty much nearly a second a lap. Alex Rins was the next Yamaha in 12th, just ahead of Toprak. They were both together basically. So wow. I mean, obviously he was very determined in front of his home crowd and so on, but to do that was fucking astonishing, and the bike looked pretty good.
It didn't look slow. That's the funny thing.
Exactly, because you're coming out of that last corner onto the start finish. It's a long uphill straight. You're coming out of a low gear corner, and generally, if you've got shit electronics, shit anti-wheelie, not a lot of horsepower, you will just get mullered on before the first turn, and it didn't happen, did it?
Yeah. No, that was the remarkable thing for me as well. And even when the tires dropped in the end, he didn't got a lot slower and overtaken by everybody. So spirited ride from Fabio, which I actually respect a lot. If you know you're on a very difficult bike for a difficult season, he complains about the bike. He wants to make a point. I think he maybe also does that to make it publicly all the time clear. Somebody has to work harder, because I think there must be somewhere a bottleneck in the whole Yamaha project V4 that stops the thing, that's not convinced enough. He has his own agenda to say these things to us, because now we're talking about it, and then somehow it gets back, he hopes, to the right people. But when he closes the visor, he's just fully on it. He can complain hours about the bike. He goes on the bike and just gives it everything. That's quite remarkable, even when you know it's going to be shit all year.
I mean, when he was at the Jerez test, he was like 1.8 seconds faster than he had been on Sunday. And obviously in the test on Monday, lots of rubber down, blah, 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 you are generally faster. But I remember then saying, when we were both there together, that's more than a normal jump from Sunday to Monday, But what doesn't, so it looks like Yamaha have improved, but then you look at Rins, 32 seconds off Martin, so that's like 1.1, 1.2 seconds a lap. So it actually probably seems that, well, maybe they've got a couple of tenths. Well,
here starts the roast of Yamaha a little bit. What Fabio said on yesterday in the press was the improvements that seems to be happening at Yamaha is not an improvement. We just stopped playing around with new parts. I don't want any changes anymore. My speed in the Jerez test basically came from going back to my old aero, last year's aero, and don't put on too many different changes in the setting, because he's convinced what we look for is not a setting change. We look for another part. That needs to be set up properly. But by now it sounds a lot like last year, actually, like playing around with settings with a bike that has been everywhere, has already tried every setting all the time. And it confuses riders, because you start to ride on 85, 90% if your bike changes all the time. And then if you do that long enough, probably never find 100% again. Look at what I said about Jorge Martin. So he went back to his old aero and says, I just wait for better parts at the moment. And at the moment, the bike is as it is. And the only improvement is last year's aero. Well, this is not a big compliment for Yamaha. The other compliment is seeing Toprak stopping on his way to the grid already with his smoking bike, and then having one bike only for the race. And then if you add to that in the Jerez race, 2 of the Yamahas had lost the rear brake function during the riding. And from what I more or less heard or concluded has to do with the extra low ride height position that the bikes could do in Jerez. That was so low that it was touching some adapter from the rear brake pressure sensor that started to leak, and then they lose all the fuel, all the fluid from it. Basically a shit thing to happen. Shouldn't happen. You can. No, it's not magic to see how deep your swing arm can go in and really touch something or not. So
I mean, Toprak was lucky we didn't get a flag to flag, because he wouldn't have had a bike to go to, because his first one was gone on the sighting lap. I kind of, that sort of got me thinking, actually, because we've had flag to flags races now for 10 years, longer than 10 years, I think. And they were brought in because, with changing brakes and everything. Because obviously with in Formula One, we all know they change tyres once or twice every race. But, it's much easier changing tyres on a Formula One car, because you've just got an axle, you pull the tyre off, you whack another one in. With a motorbike, it's completely different. You've got the rear, the rear tyre's got to go between the swing arm, you've got to put the chain on, although you can have captive sprockets and chains. And then the front, even worse, you've got to squeeze the front tyre in between the forks, got to get the calipers out of the way, blah, blah, blah.
No, they have
but do you think now with EWC, they can change, and I know they're not using carbon brakes with huge great calipers, which is the problem in MotoGP, but they change both tyres, both wheels in 5-6 seconds, which is insane.
It's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to see how they work for months and years for this last couple of tenths, and then do it every fucking 50 minutes again and again and again, throwing these wheels in. It's unbelievable. Really, really good. But this is the MotoGP, and then you don't do this so easily. But there could be another. So if you're going to the direction, why we don't go back to one bike? Look at what World Superbike and Supersport does always in Phillip Island. They give a time slot where you cannot leave the pit lane within a certain time to give everybody ample time to change the wheels. If you force the mechanics to rush, somebody will forget the brake line. Like Jorge Martins last week, actually, on the grid, changing his front brake forgot to put the line on. So they give them ample time to do it, and then you have to be in the pit lane for this amount of time to give everybody ample time to change his wheels.
Yeah. That's a kind of a weird one. I mean, I remember when they brought in flag to flags, I hated it because, that literally the original concept of motorsport was as a kind of endurance challenge. Will your machine make the end of the event? Because obviously that was very difficult in the early days of racing. Everything was, very fragile. So to actually have a race where you start the race, you finish the race on a different motorcycle that you start on, literally it's changing the goalpost. It's actually moving the goalpost to a different part of the pitch. Basically you are playing with the fundamental basic concept of racing. So I kind of hated that. I would love to see it going back to actually changing wheels, and of course there's dangers in a mechanic making a mistake, but I mean, really shouldn't be.
They can solve that. No problem.
Exactly. At the elite level, you shouldn't be saying, "Well, we wouldn't be doing if it wasn't dangerous." The whole point.
They should be able to solve that. And speaking of dangerous things on motorbikes, Friday both Aprilias lost the leg wing.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder. Like, you do all this CFD simulations in your computer, you go to the wind tunnel, you go to the track, test it, and then we point a camera at it. The thing is flapping like crazy until it breaks. I mean, you know exactly the forces that will come on it. So you should be able to calculate on the second when it will break. But they're all surprised it breaks.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. Who else? We haven't really talked about Honda, have we? They had a very quiet, I mean, led for both Friday
was beautiful.
Which was, I think, the first time they've done that certainly since Marc was around. So it sort of really seemed that they'd found something, but then everybody else moved forward and they didn't carry on moving forward, did they? So, Mir, obviously, Joan Mir, poor fucker, crashed again. Luca Marini, 10th, their top guy, 15 seconds behind. So that's just over a half a second a lap, which is about where they are every race now, 5-6 tenths. That's the kind of what they're missing, isn't it?
Yeah, but we don't see them. I see them slowly gaining momentum more to the front with more riders having reasonable results. This is a weird track, probably doesn't suit them very well. But Joan Mir must be sick of seeing the rear wheel of Fabio Quartararo because he looked at it all sprint as well to not being able to pass him. And then he looked at him all race until he crashed again.
Yeah.
He didn't pass him.
Yeah, no, yeah, man. I mean, we say it. I love the fact that he still, it just never slows him down, does it? The fact that he's, most riders, they kind of feel embarrassed and they feel like they might lose their job if they keep crashing, because that's not really what your bosses want. Not only do you not get a result, you also cause a lot of, a lot of stress to the budget. Yeah. I mean, imagine what Joan Mir's crash budget must be.
Fortunately, it's Honda HRC. They have unlimited, but still, in the end, man. I mean, people will be. I think in the team they will be having 1 or 2 question marks behind his name because he just never finishes, always crashes, and you lose a lot of opportunities by a guy that always crashes. And I think his explanation is
Mir's out of there.
Yeah, for sure he's out of there. Yeah, and I think not many people are waiting. It's not a queue in front of his, at his motorhome with people with contracts for him to sign because the guy was a world champion, a true world champion in the year that was really, it was deserved, but almost without winning one race, just being super, super stable. The opposite of what we see now. That was a super friendly foreign line Suzuki bike. And they just did everything correct. The whole atmosphere in the team, his crew chief, his age, everything was just calm and controlled and always taking the points in a very strange COVID year. So it was deserved, but it doesn't show. He will quite likely repeat it if he's given the good bike again. Because after that, Joan Mir, I don't know. talent alone is not enough. If you can't control your emotions, I mean, his reasoning to us is always, I have to ride a bike on the limit, otherwise it's really, really slow. Yeah, that's part of the reasoning, but you're basically paid to stay just in that limit a little bit longer and gather some more information. So you're just losing your cool. You don't really sure what you're doing all the time and not repeat it on the millimeter like you have to.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the Aprilia is kind of what this is. You know, if there's a bike out there now that's like the Suzuki, super friendly, I would say it is the Aprilia. You know what I mean? So I think he would get.
Oh, of course he will be fast on another bike.
And he would be fast. And I don't think he'd crash so much. I think, the problem is the Honda has always been like that, you have to ask so much at the front and the feedback isn't quite what you want. You have to make up all the lap time with the front tire. And that is the most risky part of the motorbike to use to make the lap time. I remember a million years ago when I was working with Marlboro Yamaha, when Carlos Checker was around, and he careless chucker, as we used to call him, because he used to crash so much. He was a little bit like Joan Mir. He was the Joan Mir of the final years of the 500s, and I think we worked out that he was on about €1 million a year crash budget. We made a kind of vague calculation. So if he was on €1 million then, Joan Mir must be doing several million at the moment. Wow, I hope they don't take. He probably owes Honda money at the end of every year, doesn't he? He said, "Well, here's your pay packet, but we're taking out your crash damage." It's like, so you owe us €500,000.
Thank you very much, cash?
Yeah. I mean, not really much else to talk about. I mean, Bastianini once again. He's kind of surprised us, really, hasn't he? I mean, we give him so much stick on this podcast,
especially
and actually the last couple of races, he's actually been. He's been all right. I mean, he finished seventh. He was only sort of four seconds or so behind Acosta, so pretty respectable.
This is the Enigma Enea that then you think, okay, we maybe need to sign him, give him a really cool environment and good people, and he's super happy and satisfied and not push. Until something happens, or until maybe 1-2 times a year, he does something really extraordinary. The rest of the year, you can't count on him.
And it's also that whole contract time. He knows he's got to keep ramming in some good results, and he's the kind of Luca Cadalora of now. And just speaking about Carlos Checker a minute ago, back then, that Luca Cadalora was that guy. He would have a pretty average sort of first half of the season, and then contract. In the days when you started talking about contracts with Bruno was about when people started talking
just
about
after the summer break.
And then his result, the last, everybody's talking about, who's going to go where? His result, like, wow, podium. Oh, yeah, no, we're going to sign Luca Cadalora.
And then he falls asleep again.
And then, he'd have the first half of the season holiday ride around and then wake up in the last few races.
Something tells me Gunther Steiner will not see it like that. Will not take it that easy.
I find the whole Steiner thing quite interesting. I think he's not particularly happy. He's wondering what the hell this whole MotoGP thing is all about, and why has he got these riders? He's got one rider finish. I mean, he was the Haas team boss, I think, wasn't he, at Formula 1? So he's used to finishing, having not great results, but, and then he's got, I think he's very confused about how we leave motorbikes empty sometimes when a rider gets hurt. And Jonas Folger explains why he finished, hasn't ridden them. They couldn't find anybody else to ride the motorbikes. So because, Pedrosa said no. Paul Espargaro, I think he
hurt himself.
He was injured. So, they had to go to Folger, who last rode a bike and raced in MotoGP 3 years ago. He finished 1 minute 13 seconds behind the winner. So that's not good. He is averaging basically 3 seconds a lap off the leader. And this is not car racing. You can't just plug a good youngster onto a bike onto a MotoGP bike, and he can go within half a second of the guy in the same car, which is quite often what happens in Formula 1. They don't touch the settings. You just put in the winner's settings and off you go, and they're within less than a second straight away, because that's how it is. It's not like that in motorbike racing,
No, it's not easy to have a replacement rider ready, which they would love to see, because if he's fast, he's somewhere on the podium in another class. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to bring him. You can't just having him in the podium in Moto2 and then say, you're going to miss 2 races because we need you.
No.
But I don't think we are far away from people in Moto2 that have already a MotoGP contract.
No, sure. No, absolutely.
Because that makes sense to have them early. really, really early.
But
And I'm probably already giving them some testing, because the special guys can get away with doing a test and go back to their old class, to their normal class. They don't completely confuse themselves from there on. If they are, then they're not MotoGP material.
But that will become part of the rules, won't it? You know, if you're a Moto2 rider and you get a contract, you can do 1 or 2 tests. They won't allow you to go. It'll be literally, and you know, I mean, the thing to do is to go to Sepang in November at the end of the season, you know, and spend 3 days there. You know, that's what they should do with rookies.
Well, Honda owns 3 pit boxes all year.
Have a rookie test at Sepang, and then they go back there for the tests in September, in February. That's what they should do if they want to do that kind of thing. But it is a massive problem, because, like you say, you know, if you're a fast rider, you can have a full-time job paying you pretty good money in World Superbike. You know, we're seeing MotoGP paying test riders massive amounts of money.
Yeah.
For testing, because testing is now so important. But, you know, Liberty saying they want every team to have a full-time spare rider. That's impossible. That's impossible. You can't have one rider sitting there as a spare rider for a team, and they might not race all year.
Yeah, you go to a good Moto2 guy, Hogado at the moment, for example, and say, next year you'll be MotoGP Honda, but you don't race. We give you 8 tests and maybe some wildcards. And if somebody breaks a leg, you're in it. Please sign here. He will probably not sign there, because that's a shit deal. He will lose his speed.
Yeah. No, that just won't work. You can't have a Moto2 rider possibly replacing a MotoGP rider. No Moto2 team's going to allow that.
They can give him a contract like, stop riding Moto2. Next year you're MotoGP rider, but you're only testing. And if you're lucky, somebody breaks a leg and you can do a race. That doesn't sound very attractive to me. If I had a young career, no, not at all.
No, that's horrible. That's horrible. So Liberty have got a lot to learn about MotoGP. A lot to learn.
Poor Danny Holgado was disqualified from the results. I mean, there was all sorts of controversy on the beginning of the Moto2 race. There were crashes and there was a restart. And then he got out of the pit lane with just, 10, 13 seconds to go before the pit light went red. So they were repairing his bike at the last seconds, and they sent him out without the front mudguard, which normally it should not be a problem. Technically, it's not a problem. And then in the end, he got disqualified because, honestly, I'm the first to say I didn't know, but even in Moto2, probably Moto3 as well, you homologate an aero package and that's it. And your front fender is part of the homologated aero package. And if you take it out, you change your homologation setting. And that's where his shit, they went really shit. So, special.
Yeah, the Moto2 and Moto3 were very Le Mans races, weren't they? I mean, Moto3, you know, those skinny little tyres and not a lot of load on the tyres. Wow, you know, they were firing a lot of riders over the high side. And there was a fantastic kind of lower end of top 10 battle in Moto2 for a while, which was proper Le Mans stuff, just riders.
A lot of contact.
Because again, none of the corners lead into the next corner the way they should. You know, so riders are all over the place, barging into people. It was excellent fun. I enjoyed that a lot. All right, are we done?
There was some talk about the whole shot devices for this track, because this track and Phillip Island and Silverstone, it's extra challenging for the teams to set up, because you set up your whole shot device. It's not a fixed item that you have or don't have. You set up how deep you want the rear to be at the start. You set up how deep you want the front to be at the start. And if you set it all super, super deep, you rocket away from the start, but you need a lot of brake force and a longer brake force to get the both of them free in their normal position, which in Le Mans you don't have at the first kink. No. The second kink is going to be a really big problem, because you suddenly have an oil tanker instead of a speedboat. And then even the guys coming from the back, they don't brake hard and aggressive enough for turn 3, because they're all trying to find their way in between the other riders. That is on some tracks not a problem at all. Like Aragon, everybody brakes super hard for turn 1 here. But there was talks of the riders. There was like a rumor that wasn't going to be allowed or anything, but that's way too late. You can't do the rumor. You can't just take it out at the last. If you take it out, do it before the weekend and give the teams extra practice time, because then you have to change your whole launch control settings and everything. It's basically bullshit to do it now.
Yeah. So that, I mean, they were talking about getting rid of it here, and is it Silverstone and Phillip Island?
Yeah,
I think
100%.
Yeah,
These are always
I think,
the ones.
So they all have. You're not smash braking for the first corner, so you don't disengage the device. But how fucking ridiculous is this? We've had these things for 6, 7 years, 8 years. And now, 5 races before or 10 races, 15 races before they're talking about getting rid of them.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and only
Why
on
didn't
1 or
they
2
just do
tracks,
this?
because here it's dangerous.
Yeah.
First of all, it was dangerous from the first moment, and it's still really dangerous. We should have got rid of them years ago. Second thing is, it's also an adjustment tool now from the team. So just like you choose your tire and your tire pressure and your gear ratios and your whole setting from your bike, you choose your whole shot starting device. And if you fuck it up, you go off the track. Yeah, there you go. That's because you choose a certain setting. That's it. Yeah. It's not like they usually don't work and then you're suddenly in danger. They usually work, but you choose a certain setting. And that's it. Yeah. But we should have got rid of them already years ago. That's a disappointing thing from this whole story, that somehow, although everybody more or less agreed they're not good news, someone was blocking it, and then we never changed it really, which is bullshit, because Dorna, as I call them, could have already taken years ago the Joker card saying safety, because it is really safety. Because we go way too fast into the first corner with the whole group still as one group. Now that is dangerous. They have taken safety cards for less reasons than this, but somehow they didn't want to piss off somebody or some manufacturer and never really did it, or maybe waiting for an accident.
It'll be a political thing. You know, there's always horse trading in these situations. Basically, Dorna will, whichever factory doesn't want the whole shots to go, and I would imagine it was Ducati, since it was them that kind of brought them in and everything. It doesn't matter who it is, but so Dorna want that factory to come on board with all the other factories, so they get the unanimous decision to get rid of something if they don't go the safety card. But that'll be a political thing where Dawn will say to that factory, all right, if you don't agree to go unanimous with all the other factories, we want you to do something else over here. Could be something completely different. You want another 200,000 euros for your freight, and you can't have that. You can either have that 200,000 euros for the freight, or you can get rid of the whole shots. You know what I mean? It's all kind of horse trading and everything. And just going back to the safety thing of the whole shots, I mean, we saw that at the very start of the race today with Bezzecchi dragging his swinging arm all the way through the fast right, which was all those sparks. Now, if you've got a part of the motorcycle digging into the tarmac when you're at a very high angle of lean, that is, I mean, he was lucky not to crash, I would say. So again, it's just boils my piss that here we are, like 7-8 years into this, and now they're like talking about safety. It's like
no. And it gets even worse, Matt, because I learned that it's not unanimous. If not all the manufacturers agree, it's just 2 years. If Dorna wants something, but the manufacturers don't agree then it's 2 years, and then we do it anyway. Well, we are with these shit things already more than 2 years. So anyway, we're all getting pissed off again about these shit things.
Are we unanimous in the fact that neither of us can say the word unanimous correctly today? Okay. Are we any more tangents we want to whiz down before?
Let me check. No. I think
I want to go and have a drink.
I think I've done everything. We covered it all. We did a whole nearly 1 hour, 15 minutes. Cool.
Yeah, cool. No, it's been good. I've enjoyed it. So before we go, final word. If you're a brand that wants to get involved with this podcast, the best podcast in the whole wide world, obviously, we are working with the Smash Brand Group out of Sydney to build partnerships with the Oxley Bomb MotoGP podcast. So if you fancy getting involved with us, go to the Smash Brand Group website, which is www.smashbrandgroup.com.au. All right. Matt, I think that's done.
So if everybody sends, if all the sponsors come on board and we make $1 million a year, would you travel to Le Mans?
Oh, no, I have no. I love Le Mans. I did eight 24-hour races there. I've done about 2,000 racing laps around Le Mans. I mean, 1 million years ago. I have no. I love the drunkenness and bad behaviour. That's the kind of behaviour that I can identify with, And I've been into the campsite And I just adore it.
The whole thing is a festival. It's a festival with a race on Sunday.
Some people hate Le Mans. I don't get it. I like the fact it reminds me of the good old days. You've got fans staggering around pissed out of their minds. To me, that's what, that's how it used to be at every race.
Well, come to us and I'll show you the campings around the track here. Or go to Sachsenring where they have also famous camping. Mugello. Beautiful. That's the atmosphere.
That's what it's all about. And this is something that Liberty have got to, get a hold of. They've got to take these 9-star CEOs who are earning like millions and millions and millions a year and fly around in private jets everywhere. They need, I am. They need to take these guys to the campsites and say, see this? This is what this is about. But of course they won't, There you go. I think we're done. Yeah. Any tangents? Anyone want to moan about anything else?
No. I'm finally done as well. Okay, thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Sam, for producing us. And we'll be back next week talking about Barcelona. Thank you, and bye-bye.